I've been at virtual meetings with recruiters, and you hear that consistent complaint that sometimes it's not that there's a lack of opportunities. It's the question is if the person applying is a fit for that opportunity. And in as much as we have a lot of catching up, like we had said earlier, I had said earlier about the education system, there's that place, like you mentioned, of a mindset of being a lifelong learner. So what skills and competencies do teenagers or young people seeking to work in the engineering field in different capacities, or specifically in metallurgical engineering, need to have? What do they need to build? What is foundational for them in terms of skills and competencies?
I'd say that you need to have an appreciation, a very good appreciation of the STEM subjects. Now, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Without that, you really cannot be an engineer. It is a fact, because that is the foundation of engineering. So if you understand the sciences, the core sciences of physics, of chemistry, and then the other allied subjects, biology, if you've got someone who's understanding of physics and chemistry and biology are really good, you can become a biomaterials engineer. You can look at how you can optimize biotechnology to help. So understanding basic subjects like flow rates, understanding things like speed and acceleration, those are things that underpin a lot of what we do in engineering. Understanding mathematics, so you put all these things together, and then you start to understand the technology that's out there, the engineering that's out there, and that is where it really starts. But apart from that, you also need to have communication skills. There are soft skills that engineers need to cultivate. You need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to work in a team. You need to be a person that's open to ideas. And once you have all these skills, or you garner all these skills, you become a person that is ready for the workplace. If you are unable to work in a team, which of course you should demonstrate at an interview or at an assessment center, it's going to be really difficult for you to make it in the door. What I can say is that all of these skills are things that can be learned. They can be learned by practicing, they can be learned by mentoring people, getting the right mentor, getting someone to speak to about what you need to know. I have volunteered in programs that help prepare people for the workplace. And we found that taking young people through these dry runs have made them more confident and ready for that very unnatural process, which is the interview process. Because there are lots of people that are ordinarily, on a very good day, very talented, but put them in that high pressure situation of an interview and they crack. So it may be that there may need to be some practice there. So it's something that needs to be learned.
Wow. I think this how you ended it drew my attention to the interview part, but I know that question is down. We're still going to get to that, but I have some questions for you there, and I know they do too. So thank you for the insight in skills and competencies. You worked in different capacities as a lecturer. You lecture now, you have been a researcher, and you probably still research, a business consultant, and an engineer. So how did it all come together? Because when you were giving us your journey and telling your story, you spoke about how different parts came together. And here's why this question matters, or one of the reasons why it matters. I've met people who believe there's just that one thing you should focus on. And if you want to advance in a career path, now you should stick to one thing. And the understanding of stick to one thing is even the other aspects of that one thing, because one thing has subsets, okay? Even the other aspects of that one thing, they struggle to accept, they feel they are losing focus when they have to move from one place to another. Now, another thing about this is the mindset that, okay, if I leave this and leave to something else, how would I come across as being someone who doesn't have focus? Now, I'm trying to tie it into something. You made all these shifts as opportunities presented themselves, and you had to decide, okay, based on what you wanted or what you felt was pertinent at that moment, what to go for. Now, what should people in with opportunities consider when making these choices? You have done different things and they came together for you. Okay. So when someone wants to choose and maybe shift from one career path to another or make study decisions, what should they consider? Because in some settings, you are the architect of your career path in a way, not only your employer. So that will depend on the employer to chart the course for them. So how did you take ownership, let me put it that way, of your journey, and how has it come together for you? How has it come together for you?
Right. So I think it's a two-part question, and you touched on something, and you were absolutely right. A lot of people think about having the one thing that they have to focus on and they cannot shift from that. There is a lot of danger in being a one-trick pony. The problem with that is if the world changes, how do you change with that? How do you adapt? And I would say that taking a step back, looking at history, we found a lot of people. I did take a step back and look at history when I was looking at having a career. And what I found was a lot of people, very famous names, had different things that they had tried their hands at, and they became good at those things. Of course, there were one or two things that they were exceptional at, but they were good at several other things. Galileo was good at several other things, right? Einstein was good at many things. So in essence, what I'm saying is that you have to learn as much as you can. Of course, you can become a specialist in some area or areas, but for you to be able to adapt to our changing world, and it's getting even more fast-paced at the minute, what you have to do is you have to be adaptable. So how did it come together for me? So I did say that I started off thinking about being an engineer, working in business. I've done some lecturing. I work as an engineer. How has it come together for me? I have taken all what I've learned from all the workplaces I've been in and all the roles I've played in those places, and I have looked at what my transferable skills are. Now, by transferable skills, I'm looking at the things that apply to the jobs that I'm going to do. And at the moment, I'm also looking at all what I've done and how they're going to help me in my next role, because I'm already considering what my next role is and where I want that to be. So that is tied into what I said about you being the architect of your own career and charting the course. Now, taking ownership means that you should A, know where you want to go, B, start to chart that course, and from time to time review your progress, and C, look for the resources in terms of knowledge, people that will get you to your destination. It is a journey, and just like a train track, there will be various stops. It depends on where you want to get off. If you know that your train is going somewhere but you get off too early, then there is a bit of a problem. You can get off and change to a faster train or a slower train because you want to learn certain things. I was on a very, very fast track because in the first year of working in business consulting, I was already talking to senior managers, and I learned very quickly about things that ordinarily starting off as an engineer I wouldn't be concerned about. So having that knowledge about business from 10, 12 years ago is helping in my role today. So that understanding needs to be there. You need to be able to tie things up together. Admittedly, not everybody has that opportunity, but taking time out and then taking stock is very, very important, because that's where you begin to see that I had this from that job, or I had this experience, which is a life experience, or I can actually apply it to this job. And there are many things about making decisions career decisions that are not just for us. We need to be able to communicate to other people and communicate with other people what our ideas are and how we can progress with those ideas. That's how I did it. And I think it's a winning formula. I don't personally believe in being good at one thing. I believe that you're multi-talented, everyone is, and you can apply yourself in many different ways. All the competences I picked up from the respective organizations I've been in are helping in my progression today.
Thank you. And I think that will be a relief for a lot of people, especially those who are in other areas, something different from what they planned at the onset. So there's this divide or perspective about diploma versus degree in Nigeria. I don't know whether it's in other places, okay, but I know it's in Nigeria. And you hear from recruiters, you hear from people, it's like when it comes to opportunities, job opportunities, yes, other career opportunities, things like that, it's skewed in the favor of degree holders. And now you also hear people say things like polytechnics are more technical, university is just theory, and some other people say there's a place for both in the industry, or some companies prefer those that have technical skills. So what do you have to say about this dichotomy? Is it real? What was there dichotomy in the chances? Do they have the same value in the perception of the recruiters? Because even if everybody thinks you're okay, if the recruiters don't think that, then you might not be getting into the door. So what do you have to say about it? And if you have an example, we'd love to hear maybe someone who still made a headway with the diploma. So what's your opinion or view, on this particular issue? Thank you.
I think that is a very pertinent question for today. And the government in Nigeria has tried to intervene in that regard. In fact, it is not just a Nigerian problem. It happens in many parts of the world. It happens in the UK as well. However, the fact is your focus as an individual is one thing, your qualifications is another thing, and how you bring that to bear on a job is a third thing. So if you've got a focus and you've got work ethic that shows that you are a person that is worth investing in, I am very sure that you can get to progress. So I have seen people who started off in polytechnics and they did a national diploma, or they just had a higher national certificate, and then they got trained on the job. They got a diploma, they went to university, and from there on, they even decided to get more advanced degrees. The sky is really your start point if you choose to look at it that way. However, if you choose to limit yourself, then you will not even get on the playing field. Admittedly, the playing field may not be level, but there are ways to try and level that. And there are places for each of the different skill sets that you develop from these organizations or these institutions rather. Yeah. If you go to a university, the point of being there is to broaden your mind, to become a thinker, to become someone that develops ideas. If you go to a polytechnic, you can get on to develop hands-on skills and apply ideas at the same time. And that's the part that people forget, that you get to apply an idea and not just become someone who gets to do repetitive tasks. So there are polytechnics that actually function like universities. But I would say that years of underinvestment in polytechnics has made them, particularly in Nigeria, to fall away from what they are supposed to do and the industries they're supposed to support. So it's not a route that is a bad one. And I can give you an example. I have several examples of friends who either went through the polytechnic route, university and polytechnic route, or polytechnic first and then the university route. I have a friend who is a professor today, and he decided that he was going to do two things. One, he was going to study accountancy and he was going to study law. Now, that is about the most lethal combination you can have, because he started off with a national diploma and a higher national diploma in accounting, and he became a lawyer and went to law school, and he did both at the same time. All right.
Wow.
So when he did that, he positioned himself to be a unique asset, because when he got into the workplace, there were skills he had that nobody else had. And those people came from very good universities globally, right? But he studied in Nigeria. That's the fundamental thing, right? So he took a different path, and it worked out that he was the best at what he did. Now, we worked together when we worked in business consulting, and we decided at the same time to leave. We're in touch to this day, and he has done several things. In fact, he decided he wanted to do a PhD, and his work ethic was so good that he finished it even before the time he was supposed to finish. So that's something he cultivated from way before. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that those skills you pick up along the way, be it from a polytechnic or a university, will make you a versatile enough individual to fit in the workplace. There may be perceptions out there that will need to be quashed, and worries will need to be quelled, maybe on the side of the employees or prospective employees. But what I would say is dare to be different and bring your best to the game. Because in essence, what you really want is to be singled out as the person who is trainable,
Yes.
who has the right skills, and who can fit in that workplace. I've seen people do it even though they didn't go to a university, and they did it in Nigeria.
Wow. Wow. And that is so encouraging for many people who have doubts about diploma. I think that many would take the opportunities that they get access to with what you've said. And you made a very strong emphasis on work ethic in about a minute or two. What can you say about, okay, let me link it to the next question, because, you know, there's a connection between your work ethic and what you're able to build over the years, and positioning yourself as that valuable employee worth investing into your employer, regardless of your qualification. So what are recruiters in your industry looking out in foreign applicants, and what work ethics can applicants, students who will eventually be applicants, imbibe, okay, so that there's a cohesion in what the demand and what they are supplying as applicants? Thank you.
So I would say that you should demonstrate critical thinking, all right, and then apply that work ethic to that. So if you come up with an idea, how robust is that idea? What have you done to support that idea and build it up? Because you may have the bare bones of it, but you have to build the structure and support it. And who did you speak to? How did you get everything together to then build up that idea? After that, how did you communicate that idea? Because there is no point in having a great idea and then putting it under a table somewhere or burying it in paperwork. It has to be out there. Communicating is a very, very big part of what we do as engineers. Now, your work ethic is something that you can build on, and you continue to build on. There are various ways that you can have that. You can have a strong work ethic of working smarter or developing things, coming up with better ways of doing things. If you're a person that is a perpetual optimist and you always try to get things done better, it will always reflect in what you do. That is something that recruiters in engineering are looking for. They're looking for people with ideas, people who think they can do things differently and think of better, smarter ways to doing that.
Wow. Wow. And everyone has a mind. So there's an opportunity for everyone, since you can think and come up with ideas. That was really insightful. Thank you so much. So what are the common myths that teenagers need to debunk about careers? Generally, from your experience, your interactions with people, because some teenagers carry those myths to adulthood about life and science, math, arts, commercial, things like that. So let me not preempt it, but what do you think teenagers need to debunk about schooling education, and especially those in engineering? What do they need to put aside?
So I think that's a really, really big topic. The reason is that there's this divide that starts in secondary school or in high school. And what it is that people who go on to study science are considered the smartest of the bunch, and people who are studying the arts are not so smart. And I don't think that's necessarily true, because I remember the year before me, we had a guy who used to teach the science students maths, and he was studying to be a lawyer, or he wanted to be a lawyer when we were talking to our seniors and trying to find out what their career paths were going to be, what they wanted to study at university. So that guy was so good at maths, but he was trying to be a lawyer, you know. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that you have that divide. I don't know where that came from, but I don't think that it's necessarily useful. The other thing is people have preconceived ideas about certain jobs or careers. For example, people think engineers are those that come to fix your gas or come to fix your electricity or disconnect your power. And they think that that's a dirty job and you cannot do it. But there are times when you need to be out in the field. And then there are times when you have to be in the office thinking of a smart way of manufacturing a component. Yesterday, I was looking at 2 heat exchangers which we built. I didn't have to go to the field to make sure that we built them the right way, but I had to sit down and think for very, very long, extended periods of time about how we were going to build them. And it took us, say, a year to do that. So that was a year of consistent thinking about a problem and solving it. All right. So you need to understand what that career is, and sometimes the way to do it is to have exposure to that particular career area. So as a teenager, why don't you find somebody who's going to tell you about engineering and probably show you what happens? I remember showing very young kids about age 8 or 9 what an engineer does and what a researcher does in material science. And that stuck with them ever since. I think that's the way forward. And that's the way we begin to debunk all these preconceived notions and myths.
Wow, that's powerful for you to see. Because for many of the teenagers and young people, they don't really have a face to the career path they're interested in or an idea of what it entails. So having people show you will clear the doubts that you have about the career path. So we're coming to a very hot topic, which is recruitmental interviews. And I'm excited about asking you this question because it's something you have worked on personally. You have been involved in projects where you empowered young people, like you said earlier, to get ready for interviews. So what do teenagers or young people need to know about attending interviews and signing agreements with employers? But let's start with the interview part. What do they need to know about preparing their CV and generally going for an interview?
I would say that young people need to understand that an interview is a very unnatural situation. So it needs preparation. So prepare. You cannot have too much preparation for an interview or for an assessment center. The second thing I would say is that you need to have guidance regarding what you prepare on. So I did talk about a program which I helped run for very many years. I ran that for about 6 or 7 years. And what we did there was we took students from several different universities and we had a mock interview and assessment center. So we set them the same sort of situations, or we put them in immerse them in the same sort of situations that they would be in an interview. The only difference was at the end of the day, they didn't have a formal job offer. And the next time they faced that sort of situation, they found that they performed much better. In fact, I do remember a discussion I had with a certain fellow who had come from the US to study in the UK, and I met him in the UK. And what he did was, he was very smart. He wanted to understand what he needed to do to get a job, because at the time, many of the companies in the area that he wanted to work in were not recruiting. So how was he going to set himself apart? When I spoke to this individual, I spoke to this young man during the interview, the mock interview process, he could hardly speak. He was really shaking. And I had to calm him down and say, you need to relax, because first of all, it's a high pressure environment. Every other person is actually under pressure here. The second thing is, if you consider it a conversation about what you know, it becomes a lot easier. So when he ran through that process, he then went for 2 interviews and he nailed both.
Wow.
At that time, it was really difficult to get a job, and he got 2 offers, I think one in the US and one in the UK, and eventually he made a choice. So what I'm saying here is that having a dry run always helps. Knowing what to anticipate in the current world, in the job search process, is another thing. Having the people to guide you on answering questions is a great thing to have. Practicing with people is great. In fact, having a specific approach, like the STAR approach to answering a question, where you use a situation, the task you were involved in, how you went about it, and the results you achieved, that's a great way to answer a question. Or you can use another one, which is called CAR. You can show your competencies or your capacity. You can show your achievements and results, okay? So you can use that, and it always comes out to demonstrate who you are and brings to bear what you can deliver in the workplace. So that is a very, very fundamental thing. And I think we don't do that enough in Nigeria. I think it's a practice that needs to be encouraged, and it's something that is going to get a lot of people into the workplace. Now, there was a second bit which you talked about regarding signing agreements. You need to understand that as an individual, you've got certain rights. I know a lot of people, and in fact, the youth don't believe that we got rights in Nigeria, but we do. And if you're going to work for a multinational company, there are certain things that you should be looking out for. So you should be looking out for not just the number that they've put on that letter, but you should be looking out for what opportunities there are for any training, because some of these companies will put it out there saying that if you are interested, we're going to give you maybe a loan to help train you, but you have to be with us for X number of years. That's something you need to pay attention to. Or you need to ask if it can be included in your contract, because those are things that you negotiate. So having a good negotiation, not just about the number that comes onto your offer letter, but what your opportunities are, is a great thing to have. Okay. Then looking at what your other bits of, or your reward package will be, is also key. How many days do you get off to do other things that you want to do with your life? Because as I said, you should be a lifelong learner. Okay, so those are very important parts of understanding what you need to sign in terms of a contract or an agreement with an employer.
Wow. And what you said is really eye-opening. Now, the second part to that question that we need to just have a brief look at before we move on to one of the last questions is, when is the right time to start job hunting? And what do you think, when is the time for someone to start job hunting? And where can they find these jobs?
So I would say that it depends on the type of job that you want to do. As I've said, there are jobs that you can have through your study period at school. So you can be a person that is working part-time, and that will help build your CV. You can also decide after secondary school that you want to formally apply to an organization, and then they can help you with your education. That is entirely possible, and companies in Nigeria, believe it or not, have done that. I know that they've been doing that for more than 20 years. So people need to understand, young people need to understand that that's an opportunity that is available. You have to, as a matter of priority, understand what you want to do and how you get to doing that and who you need to speak to. It may be that you might have the right person within your family, within your extended family, within your network to be able to guide you in that area, or you could just look up some people. Thank God for the internet. Look up some people and then write to them. There are certain people who will write back, even if it takes them weeks or months. They will write back to you and tell you exactly how you can go through that. And then there are other ways that you can do this. You can join some professional bodies. I certainly did that when I was a lot younger. I joined professional bodies, and that was how I started to understand how some of these things could come together. Okay, so in particular, I joined NICE quite early on. I joined ASTM International quite early on. So you can do that at various stages, and they have student memberships. They have all of these opportunities for you to develop, and they've got material that can help with that.
Wow, that's so insightful.